Hi, everyone. It's Parul from the Business of Success. When it comes to building better, there are some essential tools that can help you not only work better, but also work smarter. For me, one of those tools for a long time has been Fathom AI. Fathom AI is a note taker like no other. It has various options, including a transcript only mode, audio only mode, video only mode, as well as offering live coaching during your sessions. I have used this so many times while I'm talking to customers, reminding me when it might be time to, take a moment or take a pause. Fathom AI is a wonderful tool that also allows you to be hands-free and fully present. The most important reason that I use it in all of my meetings and my calls. So if you are looking for a way to level up your work, gain efficiency, work smarter so that you can build better, consider Fathom AI. Check out my link to Fathom in the show notes. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Business of Success. I'm your host, Parul Bhandari. Today is a special day. It's a milestone, and we are wrapping up season 1 of the Business of Success. I cannot believe what an amazing season we've had, and it's been a journey that took us deep into the heart of what it means to build a better business that lasts. Our theme this season was simple, building better from the inside out. But what we learned was that building better from the inside out starts with a lot of looking inward. And whether you're a company or an individual, that is probably the case. Now, we've explored how intentionality and company culture, community aren't just nice to haves. They're some of the core drivers of organic revenue and employee retention. So let's take a quick look back on all the milestones that we've covered. We started this season by looking at the people who power our organizations and the resilience that they need to lead them, or the resilience that you owe them. So episode 1, probably my episode that I had the most firmest grasp on what I wanted to discuss and what I wanted to talk about, was with my good friend, Priya Bhatia, who's the CEO of New Health. We discussed the invisible challenges of women's health and how in the workplace, it is so very important to design for women, because what we're seeing happen and what we're seeing play out is essentially women are leaving the workplace. They're going off, maybe they're doing something on their own, they're building better. But when women leave the workplace, we are going to lose a lot of women in leadership, and we're not going to be able to retain top tier talent. So we've got to start designing for women. I keep hearing from Priya and all the work she's doing, and she even has launched her own podcast. So do be sure to check out Priya at New Health. Episode 2, we talked about the success flywheel. Now, this was an episode I did myself, and I wanted to introduce a little bit of the work that I do day to day, which is helping companies drive sustainable and organic growth. And that is best done through the investments you've already made, customers and people. So I focused heavily on talking about how customer experience and employee experience are not just transactional things to worry about, but they're things that actually will help you create exponential growth when you use them right. Be sure to tune into that episode if you want to get all of the details. Episode 3, we again had a good friend of mine, Princess Castleberry. She is part of Castleberry Global, and she tackles a lot of the topics that many leaders think about or deal with that maybe we don't talk about enough, which is burnout. But specifically, she talks about her view of how burnout is really a cost, or is something that comes out of all the triggers that we let guide our lives. So she has written a book about this called The Truth is in the Trigger. You can grab that book in the show notes, and you can then learn a little bit about how to avoid leadership burnout, because it leads to poor decision making. It's going to lead to a capacity crisis, and it's going to lead to leaders who are not going to be their best. Speaking of leadership, episode 4 was with Mike Lemon, who I met in a really unique circumstance, because he is actually a former leader who has challenged the traditional career ladder. He is basically embarking on going back individual contributor roles. In the episode with Mike, we talk about how success doesn't mean you just follow the ladder that everyone has followed, but by becoming an individual contributor, and honestly, we're seeing a lot of women opt into this as well, you not only impact the work that you do, but you can actually help to grow an individual, grow a team, and help grow future leaders. Now, what were we talking about in these first couple of episodes? Growth is only really sustainable when you prioritize the health and the longevity and the really great opportunity for the leaders and the people that live behind the titles that you support. Okay, so let's keep going. We had 13 episodes. There's a bit to cover. Episode 5 was with Andrea Bumstead. She is the leader of CS Impact, and she has developed something that's really cool, something that in my industry, many people are excited about, which was a 15-minute QBR. Now, my purpose in talking to her wasn't necessarily talking about customer success, but I wanted to talk to her about how a 15-minute QBR or how tools like that could be employed to basically use the time with the leaders that we have more effectively and more efficiently. Because frankly, as we know it, leaders are busy, they're burnt out, so make the most of your meetings with them. In episode 7 with Alan Gonsenhauser, Alan is the CEO of Demand Revenue. We explored how go-to-market strategy is so important for companies. We probably know that. But in order to grow your company and really land on the best go-to-market strategy, it's important to know your ICP. It's important to lean into the best practices that are actually going to drive things that I talk about often as a customer success leader, sustainable revenue and organic growth. So the bottom line is not just, hey, let me get a bunch of new logos. It's how do I retain and grow those logos? So that episode is really interesting, especially if you're somebody that's leaning into traditional marketing. It's a great look at how marketing can be used for the long customer journey and not just a short-sighted early customer journey. Okay, continuing on, we had episode 8 with Pooja Patel. Now, Pooja and I met at a fun kind of event that we were at. But when I learned about her work, I thought, wow, this is so impactful. In a lot of ways, it mirrored episode 1, where we talked about women in the workplace. And here we wanted to talk about caretakers in the workplace, but not just caretakers that are taking care of children, caretakers that also are taking care of elderly. You might not think that you are that person today, but when and if you ever have to take care of someone that is an adult in your lifetime, or an adult or like someone older in your lifetime, not just a child, you'll recognize that the systems that we have in the workplace are not really designed to help caretakers. And Pooja really focuses a lot of her business on not only helping families, but helping businesses to be coached and to best understand how they can actually drive the best experiences and not necessarily break the bank. Because it isn't about, losing all your overhead, but it is about creating systems and processes for employees to actually get the time to be human with their loved ones. All right, moving on, episode 9. Molly Wybrow is actually somebody I worked with years ago. And she always stood out as somebody who was a great employee experience builder. She's now a leader in not only talent management, but in culture at the same company. And she is a great example of the many people that have stayed on at that company, which is a kind of a unique thing in a SaaS environment. Molly talks about the cornerstone for keeping those employees, retaining them, and also growing up with them has really been a focus on company culture. And I love this episode if you are somebody that is building even something new, how culture can be really important at even the earliest of stages. And she gives you a great guideline to know when you might want to also hire somebody. In episode 10, we talked to my former colleague as well, Nazli Sato. Nazli is a go-to-market leader in the C-suite at P&G Ventures, which is an arm of Procter & Gamble. When I met Nazli years ago, we were both working as HR business partners, and we were building programs for all of our teams that we supported. There's one thing about Nazi that always stood out to me, though. She was always somebody that wanted to take the reins of something or find opportunity, take the reins of it and build better. And that's what she's doing with her leadership programs. What she's really focused on is building future-ready leaders. And how does she do that? She does things with programs such as a program she puts her leaders through, which is called Think Like a GM, which in the P&G world is like a kind of a leader of an organization. Think Like a GM is a program that she has designed, which allows employees and leaders to really hone in on the metrics that matter to their business and understand the language of business. It's a skill set that they'll use not only in their roles with her and her company, but that they'll use in other areas of their lives really successfully. So the key takeaway of these last 5 or so episodes that I just shared is if you really want to win, speed is not the ticket. It's building with intentionality, looking to build culture that is not only allowing employees to be their best selves, but allowing them to also do what they need to, and also designing for customers in a way that is systematic for their longevity. Everything in business success can really come down to a simple concept of longevity. The less churn you have of employees or customers, the more money you're likely going to save. Let's talk more about that. So as we wrap up the last 3 episodes here, episode 11 was with Swati Garg. She talked about recruiting right. And why did I want to talk about this episode? So Swati is also a good friend of mine, and she is a recruiting leader, and she's my co-author. Swati often talks about how it's so important to understand the type of recruitment you need when you need it, and how working with recruitment partners like herself, or even doing it yourself, the goal is to have an intentional program that not only allows you to get the best people into the seat that you need, but also keep them. The longer we keep employees, the longer we get the right skill sets, the better we do at retaining our hard-earned money that we spend on those processes and bringing those employees up to speed. So Swati really dives into how recruiting right can be so very important to building the company that you want. In episode 12, I talked to Ginny, who's a friend of mine that I have made through the work that I used to do of writing at Inc.com. I did an interview with one of the founders that she supports. She runs a digital marketing agency, and her agency wanted to understand a bit more about their customers. So they took on a research study trying to assess what types of employees and what types of situations do their software customers deal with. What she learned in her research is that flexible work is now kind of becoming table stakes for many employees applying to jobs. Yes, we know there's a big effort to go back into the office, but as companies are doing these efforts, consider where you can build flexibility or remote options into that week. So, I often hear about the companies that go 0 to like 100. So 0 days in office to 100%. That transition can be really hard on people that have been living and working from home. So finding ways to transition that in a way that makes sense. Maybe it's a 3-day back to work and a 2-day work from home option. Or maybe there's ways that you can build in time for childcare and pickup and things like that. But anyways, her research was fascinating, and I'm excited for you to listen to that episode. And then we wrapped the season with Sindhu Thomas George. Now, Sindhu and I met a couple of times, but she also runs the Chicago Women's Leadership Accelerator, which is an event or like a half-day conference that I attended. Sindhu has been building inclusive workplaces and organizations for over 20 years. It's her career that she has started when she was young and continued to do it. She even teaches at the college level on how to do communication with inclusivity. And what she kind of shared in that episode is that inclusion is an active design choice. It does require you to dismantle some of the old systems and the things and the ways of thinking that you might have. And it requires you to think differently to really build equitable paths. I love this episode because I am a big proponent of building more inclusive workspaces, customer experience, employee experience, as you know. So this is a really important component of that. Okay, we looked back at all 13 episodes and the patterns are kind of clear. Sustainable business growth isn't just something that happens by chance. It's a deliberate choice that you make to design, to create the right culture, to retain the employees and the customers that you are working so hard to get. I want to take a moment and say thank you to all these incredible guests: Priya, Princess, Mike, Andrea, Ginny, Pooja, Swati, Molly, Sindhu, and Nasli. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. Thank you for helping me build this podcast. And a huge thank you for just being a part of this journey with me. And to all the listeners, I want to say thank you to you, because if you're if you're using your very busy time to listen to this podcast, it means that you're somebody that wants to build better. If this season even helped you rethink a tiny bit of your business, we would love if you could rate us on Spotify, Apple Music, or YouTube. It would mean the world. So looking ahead, season 2 planning is in the works. We are taking a short break and we'll be back in the fall. We'll be diving into other areas of the business system that are very important and that are going to drive growth as well. Building better by looking at finance, accounting, marketing, and AI. And we want to dive into understanding how these systems are so important, not only for leaders, but for employees and for the whole company to work as one. Until next time, I hope that you'll consider following us on Instagram, sharing this podcast with a friend, or most importantly, continuing to try your best to build better from the inside out. Have a great day and see you when we resume season 2. Thanks for listening to The Business of Success. If today's conversation sparked a new way of thinking about growth, value, talent, leadership, don't forget to follow along and share this episode with someone who is building something meaningful. This podcast is proudly sponsored by Customer X Success, which is helping organizations design customer value, build better and higher impact teams, and turn success into a growth strategy. You can learn more about Customer X Success at www.customerxsuccess.com. I'm Parul Bhandari, and this is The Business of Success, where success is built, not just chased. Until next time, see you soon.